Magabanan, folks. Apologies for my prolonged absence. I've been extremely occupied with work recently, but I'm trying to make up for it via this differential equation that you may recognize as the time-independent Schrodinger equation in one dimension. But don't worry, you don't really need much knowledge at all of quantum mechanics to solve this thing, and we'll just treat it like any other math problem or differential equation problem, that is. So we're trying to solve for the function u, which is the energy eigenfunction. And we're dealing with the case of a bound particle subject to a force field with this potential energy function v of x equals negative v naught Dirac delta of x, where v naught is positive. Okay, cool. I believe this is the first time we're dealing with the Dirac delta function, at least explicitly here on the channel, so this is going to be interesting. So not only am I interested in the energy eigenfunction, but I would also like to uncover the total energy of the system. But how on earth am I supposed to approach this thing, given that I have a Dirac delta function? Well, the Dirac delta function is actually a really good place to start here, because Dirac delta of x is equal to 0 for all x being non-zero, which implies I can write the Schrodinger equation as h bar squared over 2m times d squared u over dx squared equal to e times u for x being non-zero. And because we're talking about a bound particle, I'm going to introduce a negative sign on the right and of course specify that e here is a positive real number. So this looks like a pretty straightforward differential equation. I mean, we could write it as d squared u over dx squared equal to 2me over h bar squared negative sign times u. And we could call k squared as negative 2me, rather, I'll let the negative sign stay there, 2me over h bar squared, so that we have d squared u over dx squared equal to negative k squared u. And it's pretty easy to see that this is going to be solved by an exponential function, or exponential functions, that is. So we can write out that u of x is equal to a constant of integration a times the exponential function of negative k times x, and of course I'll expand back k. So k is going to be root 2me over h bar x plus b times b being another constant of integration, the exponential of root 2me over h cut times x. Now for some constraints introduced by quantum mechanics. The first thing we need is that the eigenfunction is regular. And by that, I mean the limit of u of x as x tends to plus or minus infinity is 0. But we have two exponential functions here, one with a minus x and the other with a plus x. So we'll define the eigenfunction in a piecewise manner. So we'll define it as a times exp negative root 2me, terribly sorry about that, over h bar times x for x being positive, and we'll define it as b times exp of root 2me over h bar times x for x being negative. And of course, without loss of generality, we can set a equal to b, since the constant is going to be determined by the normalization condition anyway. Okay, cool. Now that is quite nice. In other words, I could summarize this that for x being non-zero, u of x is equal to a times exp of minus plus root 2me over h bar. Terribly sorry about that. The square root only contains the 2me. H bar is downstairs, and we have x over there. But I'm still not anywhere close to determining the energy of the system. We have determined the eigenfunctions, but we're now interested in the total energy of the system. And for that, I'd like to actually differentiate this thing with respect to x. So we have du over dx equal to the derivative of an exponential function. It's just going to be this thing, the constant inside, times the original exponential function because of the chain rule. So we'll have minus plus root 2me over h bar times u of x. And this is going to come in handy for directly integrating the Schrodinger equation. So for any x, we have h bar squared over 2m d square u over dx squared plus v of x times u. Now, v of x is, of course, negative v naught. Dirac delta, almost messed it up by saying Kronecker delta. Dirac delta of x times u equal to negative e times what exactly? Oh, yeah, u again. So I'm interested in integrating this from negative epsilon to positive epsilon, where epsilon is just some positive real number. And of course, we're integrating with respect to x. So what does this mean for us? Well, the integral of the second derivative is the first derivative, so let me just get that out of the way. We have negative h bar squared over 2m times du over dx, with the limits being negative and positive epsilon, minus v naught times the integral from negative to positive epsilon, Dirac delta of x times u of x dx. And on the right, we have negative integral from negative to positive epsilon of u of x dx. And that's just going to tag along for the next few steps because the left-hand side is just much more interesting. So the first thing we have there is negative h bar squared over 2m times du over dx evaluated at x equal to epsilon minus du over dx evaluated at x equal to negative epsilon minus v naught. What about this integral involving the Dirac delta function? Well, when you're integrating over an interval that contains the point where the argument of the Dirac delta function is 0, the output is just the function u evaluated at that exact point. That is to say, in this case, u of 0. And on the right, we have, again, the integral that is just going to tag along for a while. Now, the derivative was defined in a piecewise manner, and recall that x here is a positive, terribly sorry about that, epsilon here is a positive real number. So we'll recall the definition of the derivative here. For a positive argument, for a positive x that is, we have a negative sign, and for a negative x, we have the positive sign, so that's good. It means we have negative h bar squared over 2m du over dx at x being positive is just negative root 2me, terribly sorry about that, root 2me over h bar times u of epsilon minus, now for x being negative, we're just going to have root 2me over h bar u of negative epsilon. Okay, cool. Again, we have this v naught times u of 0, and on the right, again, we have that integral that's just going to tag along, but I might as well write it in a nicer form or more useful form for now. What happened to that parentheses? Oh yeah, it's over here. So I'm going to write this as negative e times the integral from negative epsilon to 0 plus the integral from, terribly sorry about that, 0 to epsilon of u of x dx. And the reason I'd like to do this is because I'm now interested in the limit of this whole thing as epsilon tends to 0. So let me just apply that by zooming out a little bit to give myself some writing space. Switch colors just for variety. So we have the limit as epsilon tends to 0 of this whole thing, which results in, wait, I could factor out the negative root 2me thing. So that's negative, signs canceling out, h bar squared over 2m times root 2me over h bar. And then we're left with u of 0 minus, no, wait, the negative signs were factored out. So it's u of 0 plus u of 0 minus v naught times u of 0. And on the right-hand side, because of the continuity of u, the integrals are just going to collapse to zero. So we have a big fat zero on the right-hand side, which is pretty damn convenient because that means I could also factor out u of 0, giving me h bar squared. Now, wait, there's some cancellation once again. So this is h bar root 2m over 2m is another interesting opportunity for cancellation. So that is just root e over 2m times 2 from here minus v naught equal to 0. And this lets us solve for the energy of the system. So this implies that e over 2m is equal to v naught squared over 4h bar squared. There's again some cancellation, and this implies that the energy of the quantum system is indeed m times v naught squared over 2h bar squared. We'll take a moment to appreciate that this is unique and hence there are no excited states for the system. In other words, the only energy or the only state is the ground state. And this was, of course, obvious earlier from the eigenfunction itself. We see that it is unique and determined by, well, E itself, which is unique. Kind of circular there, but yeah, it's more or less easy to see right from the onset given our exponential function over here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Do drop me a follow on Instagram as well, and comment down if you'd like to see some more problems in quantum mechanics. Obviously, they're going to involve integrals and differential equations, but I do enjoy solving these from time to time. Anyway, I hope you learned something. Thank you. See you next time.